the reason to me money is important. You can win in this city with volunteer work. I think there's a lot of council members who owe their seats not to raising the most money, but to having the best organization. The problem is you need enough money to broadcast your message. Fry forces, we know how they campaign. It's negatively, and it will be coming with over $1 million. And so the question will be, in an environment where you can't really trust TV to get into that kind of nuance, and you certainly can't trust the Star Tribune to cover that fairly, how do you talk to people who will be tuning in the middle of October? Now, I hope they all have clever ways. They haven't shared it with me yet, so they may have them. But that, to me, is the money challenge.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Okay, we are back on the Wedge Live podcast in studio. No bike rides, no sailboats. Just David Brauer here with me, your host, John Edwards. Thank you for being here, David.
Of course, anytime.
This episode is going to air shortly before the Minneapolis City Convention, where the DFL, the Minneapolis DFL, will potentially endorse a mayoral candidate or not, and some park board candidates. So we're going to be doing a vibe check on our way into that. And David, I'm going to start by telling you, I have never felt, it's been a long time since I felt this good about the city, which is a weird juxtaposition with how I feel about the country. And like, eventually, I don't know if that's going to last, but it's how I'm feeling right now. Like, Hennepin Avenue is coming into shape. Bryan Ave is spectacular. When I bike that and I see old people in their lawns and families biking on Bryan Avenue, like, people are out and about downtown and in uptown, I feel like, in ways I haven't seen recently. Crime is back to somewhat normal levels. It's less of a topic. But like, how are you feeling? Do you share my feelings?
No.
Okay.
But it isn't, but I'm really glad to hear it, because I can certainly, I can, sometimes you end up in your own little bubble, which I do. Now, to your point, today I biked up the riverfront on a very hot days when we're taping this, and I am a chronic underhydrator when I bike, and today I really paid the price. But I wanted to go up the Mississippi riverfront to see the new undercut between Ole Olson Park, which is where the park board headquarters is, just off North 2nd Avenue on the north side by the river. There's a new path that cuts underneath a railroad trestle that has dead-ended the bike path at Ole Olson for decades, long as there's been a bike path probably. Now it goes under that railroad trestle and connects up to a bikeway that starts at the 26th Street overlook north. So for people that haven't been on the north side, there's a nice little overlook of the river that was built a few years ago. And now it's connected to the main riverfront bike path on the north side. You have to jog over to a fairly industrial North 2nd Avenue, just north of Washington Avenue, to be able to go all the way up to the end of the north path, just before you get to North Mississippi Regional Park. Anyway, that's a huge connection. Like, that has just been a giant pain in the ass for bikers. And, again, just kind of reflecting on your optimism, for years, it's just been a hard stop. But over time, they built the overlook. They actually built the 26th Street North Path. Now they've connected the two. They're in the process of building the upper river terminal, where the amphitheater, some people may know that as where the amphitheater is supposed to be. And I got pretty far, up the north side of the river. That you can't fully bike along the north side of the river because there's still a lot of industrial sites there. But that's a really nice improvement. And you mentioned Bryan Avenue, which is not far away from my house. I sometimes bike away from the Blaisdell bike lane, which is 1 block from my house. I bike over to Bryant just because there's more people and it's better infrastructure. You can bike along Hennepin Avenue. You can't bike all the way yet, but I walk that way a lot just to see what's going on. That connects to what will be an improved bike connection between, I guess I would say, roughly where 94 is and downtown. You'll be able to connect all the way through past Loring Park and go into downtown on a protected bikeway in downtown Hennepin Avenue before it sort of gets to that bastard child that is the Hennepin Avenue bikeway in downtown proper, where, basically you need a cow catcher on the front of your bike to deal with pedestrians. But so in that sense, I'm feeling really good about the things we've done, and I'm kind of glad we've snuck all these projects in before austerity really hits. Obviously, that's on my mind. Trump coming after Minnesota, and the racist flying monkeys coming after Omar Fateh. I was just reading today. Those things definitely give me pause. I'm not convinced that we're out of the woods at all on the crime issue. It's one of the things we should spend some time talking about, because when I've been thinking about everybody on the left, my side of the world, being so excited about Zohran Mamdani, his campaign is really revolving around affordability and less around crime. And one of the things I wonder about in this mayor's race is whether the big Minneapolis issue is still public safety, which I think is something that the incumbent mayor, Jacob Frey, would like it to be. I think it's something his donors would like it to be. I think it's something maybe even the Star Tribune editorial page would like it to be. But, I guess I'm humble enough to say maybe it is still the big issue, or maybe I'm just living my fears.
I mean, I think I agree it still probably is, and Frey and company still want it to be and maybe need it to be, because they did so well with it 4 years ago, in a year when it should have been, public safety should have been like a losing issue for the mayor. But I mean, in reality, like, I feel good that there is less crime happening, like less the politics of it. Like, I think the trauma from the last 5 years is just going to linger with a lot of people. And maybe that's why we talk about it so much, even as the numbers go down. And even as candidates elected in 2023, like Katie Cashman and Oreen Chowdhury, like, if you were going to play the game of the council is responsible for crime and police staffing and police funding, like, those two should be heroes, whereas Katie Cashman is just getting pummeled by Elizabeth Schaefer and what's his name, the former U.S. attorney who spoke at the convention, Andy Luger, like, as if Katie Cashman is responsible for the problems we've had. But if you do the charts from when she was elected, funding has gone up, crime has gone down. And so if she's responsible, hooray for her.
Yeah. Well, it gets at, the core perception reality dynamic. I think for some people, crime is very real. I haven't really been touched by it, but, I was reading today about some knucklehead going around smashing window after window down on 14th Street in Loring Park. Certainly in Ward 12, where Oreen Chowdhury is running a race against your favorite candidate, Becca Thompson. Becca Thompson is basically staking her whole campaign on the idea that Ward 12 in southeast Minneapolis is a crime-ridden hellhole. And I don't live in Ward 12. I live in Ward 8 in the center of the city on the southwest side. I don't know. I don't think so, based on who I talk to, based on my travels around there. One of the great things about the bikes in the back, I was thinking about this today on a way too hot bike ride that I stupidly took, is that, when you ride a bike, you see a lot of the parts of town that people who don't walk and don't bike never see. Today I was biking up the industrial corridor, which is North Washington Avenue and North 2nd Street, where there's an on-street bike lane that'll eventually be protected. When I bike down in Ward 12, I do bike down Hiawatha and Minnehaha, and I'm biking around the places where there are the unhoused. Today, when I was biking on the Greenway and up the riverfront, there are places where the encampments have moved, the encampments that people don't see, and the ones that Jacob Fry touts for having broken up, which I think will have some electoral salience. Well, if you're a biker and you get around town, you see where those people are. They're atomized, they're under bridges, they're under overpasses. They pick up and move more often than they used to. I know in Ward 12, there have been incidents. People have seen the homeless. There are talks about pedestrian paths to light rail possibly being closed. Again, I don't live there, so I don't know if these are the sort of things that people whip each other up about on Nextdoor, where, there's just a few things, if any, happening, or whether, it's a real problem. So I try to maintain some humility about that, especially because 2021, speaking of scars from the COVID era, I was just so scarred by that, that election. It was a real defeat, both for progressives who wanted a mayor and progressives who wanted a council. It took 2 years later to get a progressive council back again.
Was it the Star Tribune who did that story where they talked to people about how they were feeling about the election, and they're like, "Oh, is an election happening? Who are the candidates? I don't know. I feel pretty good about the city. Maybe Jacob Fry deserves a third term." Like the degree to which people are just not paying attention, and it's going to come down to like, did I take a nice bike ride a couple of weeks ago, and like, am I feeling good? It won't be maybe not decided about like the nitty gritty issues of the past 12 years or the past 8 years of Jacob Fry and whether we want to make it 12.
Yeah, that was a funny story. I mean, there's so many funny stories we could talk about that the Star Tribune have done. But that one was one of those ones where the basic vibe from the random 7 people that they talked to around the city, but around Uptown was, yeah, I don't really know. And, I'm feeling okay and things are all right. And the headline, of course, was crime concerns, and there was maybe a few people who mentioned crime glancingly, but not like anything like their 2021 to your point. So I do feel like, again, I guess I'm Debbie Downer compared to your Orem optimism here. But I do feel like there's going to be a lot of money spent on the narrative that it's the city council's fault for any crime that you see. Meanwhile, Jacob Fry gets to also tout that, I'm Jack Nicholson and a few good men, and you can't handle the truth. And without me, we wouldn't have rising police recruitment and rising police pay and all of that. So, I guess that's the worst case. The best case, and I think it's, by the way, totally plausible. I guess I'm a half empty guy, but the best case is that, as you said, that the danger isn't as acute. People do get to focus on other things. People do get to focus on who's going to be the most genuine and true opposition to the sorts of things that are happening in Washington, D.C. And, I think Jacob Fry has some vulnerabilities there, not just the ICE raid, the DEA enforcement action that ICE participated in Lake Street. I do wonder if we are poised in an environment like this to take a turn toward more implacable opposition that would be reflected by, say, an Omar Fateh or even Dwayne Davis. We'll see.
So we'll get to the mayor's race in a second, but I'm curious, did you see Elizabeth Schaefer's email where she's like, "Oh, that's a federal issue. We don't have to worry about that stuff. I feel bad, but like, that's not our problem here at the city." Like, I feel like that's just not the correct tone. I can kind of tell that she writes her own stuff because it's so bleak and so like off tone wise. Like, what are you doing? Like, do you have that reaction?
Yeah, I saw that email. I was on vacation, but I saw it probably thanks to your feed, where she basically goes, "Oh, it's really tragic what's happening in Washington, D.C., and this just shaking her head and then going, but I'm focused on Minneapolis and Ward 7, as if anybody can just focus on their little backyard in all of this." And it really struck me. I used to live in Ward 7. It's probably the ward I've lived in the longest now, Ward 8, but that's probably the second longest. And it struck me as one of these blithe, seven pools, Kenwood. I can still go out to lunch. I can still, you know, I can still get to Vail. I can still ski in Aspen. And again, I don't know what the voter mix is going to be in Ward 7. One of the things I'm always reminding lefties of, and they're probably sick of it by now, is that the election that the lefties won for the council 2 years ago had probably what's going to end up being about half the turnout of this election. This election is certainly going to have more of a turnout. So the question is, do more people in Ward 7 turn out, and are they the sort of blithe homeowners that Elizabeth Schaefer reflects, or are they the sort of younger Mamdani type voters? I mean, it's not just Mamdani that are Cashman voters in that ward, but she's made it clear she's going to focus very heavily on renters. They did the last time. Is there enough headroom there of basically the new Minneapolis to overcome sort of an aroused, I would say, old Minneapolis that turned out at the Ward 7 conventions, the well-heeled, to, get Elizabeth Schaefer the endorsement?
Are you a city delegate or alternate?
I am not. I'm going, see the bikes behind me, of course. Before the convention was dated, I made a date with my wife to go on a 50-mile ride up the Tour of the Saints, which is something Bike MN does. Starts out of St. Ben's in St. Joseph's, Minnesota, and goes all around and comes back. So I couldn't be a delegate. I feel bad for the delegates having to be trapped in Target Center with expensive food. I certainly have been one of them, and I've been in town, but my wife handily reminded me at caucuses that I couldn't do it.
Well, even though you're not one of the heroes that will be stuck inside Target Center all day on Saturday, July 19th, give us your, have you endorsed candidates? Do you have a ranking that you want to give us?
I don't have a ranking yet, but I think it's a pretty simple message that I have, which is rank Dwayne Davis, Omar Fateh, and J.S. Hampton, and don't rank Jacob Fry. I'm going to probably wait, honestly, until whatever the day before the election is, or whenever the day before I choose to early vote, to really decide. I mean, we've got so much time left in this campaign. I mean, people who are insiders know we're in the thick of it right now. But as we're recording this, it's middle of July, August, September, October, and then another half of a month. I threw some money, because that's what I can do now at my age, at Emily Hofstad, Emily Koski, sorry, Emily, who, lasted about 3 weeks after I gave her a bunch of money. So, one of the things I'm being careful of is that I want to be sure that, those three are in it to stay. Now, I've quizzed Dwayne Davis, who backed out temporarily after his mother died, and, he says he's still in, so that's good. The other thing I would note is that because the election, we only have the general election filing period, it hasn't even opened yet, and it doesn't end until middle of August. So we don't know who else is going to be in. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that you kind of have to be in by now for me to really be considering supporting you. So among those three, I think they're all good. To my mind, they're very different flavors of potential change. As I know, I'm having an event at my house in early August where we're called Mayor Palooza, where we're bringing all three of the major challengers together so that people can essentially hear from all of them without Jacob Fry taking up the airspace. It's sort of assumed that if you're coming to that event, you've decided Fry's not your guy, but who is your guy? And I know a lot of people who don't like Fry. Their minds are made up on that. And these are not people who put their head in the sands, but they really haven't focused yet on who they should rank and how they should rank them. So this is an event to kind of help people do that, and also to raise them all money, because all of them are going to be sucking wind compared to the Fry machine's ability both to raise money for his campaign and for independent groups to send out lit. So the short answer to your question is, I know who I'm going to vote for. I just don't know in what order yet.
Mayor Fry and his PACs. So much money. And like this could have been a year when somebody like Emily Koski showed herself to be like a normal person with roughly the same ideology as Jacob Fry. Like I can give you most of the same policies, only I will be sort of agreeable and I can work with the other side and we can like put the past behind us. And they didn't give her an inch. They ran her out of the race.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on behind her dropping out. I happened to look last night preparing for this, because I do prepare for you, John, at the campaign finance website that the city of Minneapolis has, which is, by the way, better this year, finally. And the leading fundraiser as of the March reports, which is a while ago now, was Emily Koski, which it's because she carried some money over from her council campaign that the Fry people were suing her over, and they probably would have won, which meant a lot of that money would have been backed out. But Emily dropped out for a lot of reasons, and but I think one of them, and this is something that's also affected Jazz Hampton, and I think it's affected Dwayne Davis, is that people who in their hearts are opposed to Jacob Fry do not want to publicly cross the mayor because they think he's got a good chance of winning. So they don't want to show up on campaign finance reports. They don't want to show up on endorsement lists. And, that hurts because when you give to an independent expenditure group, it's unlimited. It's dark money. When you give to a campaign, a mayoral campaign, you can give up to $1,000 this year. So again, this is one of the reasons I'm having Mayor Palooza, to just sort of try my best to get these people, these challengers, enough money to participate. But, I guess you mentioned I can give you Jacob Fry without Jacob Fry's assholery. And, there's maybe a couple of campaigns that could make that claim if they had enough money to get the message out. Probably the best position for that is Jazz Hampton, who may be the least well-known of the three candidates. That can also be Dwayne Davis, by the way. Young guy.
And the most personable, I think. Has the best personality, maybe. Yeah,
he's got a very pleasant, I would say, Minnesota personality, kind of a combination of entrepreneurial enthusiasm, but he's good at connecting. And I've met all three of the candidates individually, so I've tried to take his measure. I think if you're going to decide to support him on your ballot, which I think you should, I think my sense, and I'm still forming it, but my sense with Jazz is that I don't think his policies would diverge much at all from Jacob Fry's. I really don't. In fact, I've heard some people, I'll have to get Jazz talking about this at my event, saying that he might not be as good, quite as urbanist on bike lanes as Jacob Fry, because whatever you think of Jacob Fry, one thing that he's done pretty well is presided over a lot of bike lane improvements that you and I have been talking about. There's a major disagreement, I know, between you, and I share it, on the Hempen Avenue bus exclusivity. But it is fair to say the guy is not demagogue bike lanes. Some of his supporters have, but he has not, and he's gotten them built. So, with Jazz, I'm making more of this maybe than it should be, but no, I still have to be convinced that he's going to continue at least the Fry legacy on that. But I think policy-wise, I think he's an urbanist. Think he's pro-business, though. Don't think he's Jason Chavez, for example, and nobody should be convinced of it. I think the reason that he'll be on my ballot, the practical reason, is that I just think he's a better person, a better personality for getting along with who's ever on that council. And I emphasize this over and over again. Maybe I've been too beaten down by lefty defeats in 2021. But, on some level, we'll have a mix of lefties and non-lefties. We'll have a mix of DSA and, like me, a DSA sympathetic but not a member type council members, and we'll have a mix, and we'll have some Michael Rainvilles and, God forbid, Elizabeth Schaefer's and, Linnea Palmasanos. What I really want in a mayor is I want a grown up. I want a grown up who's going to listen to all of these people, who's going to bring them all together. There will be political battles. And frankly, if there's not a progressive majority on the council, we'll lose those battles. But I don't want to, if that worst case happens, I feel that Jazz will bring a balance to the perspective, that he won't go out of his way to sort of do, what it sounds like Andrew Cuomo's done, for example, in New York, which is use the left as a punching bag to try to make sure that he can get to 50+1 with independents and Republicans, and especially their money, to continue to rule the city. So while that may sound like kind of a tepid case for Jazz, I actually think it's pretty profound. I mean, I've lived in the city since 1979, and I have honestly never seen a bigger toddler in the mayor's office than the mayor. And just petty and divisive and gaslighting. And, again, I'll say on policy, not the worst mayor. But in terms of governing and exploiting division, I just think he's the worst I've seen at that. So that's my quick take on Jazz. I think Dwayne Davis, I don't think he's a fire-breathing, DSA type at all. The man, used to be a congressional aide for Steny Hoyer. He was a government relations director / lobbyist for Sallie Mae, which is one of the federal financing groups for student loans and such. And, he lobbied Democrats and Republicans when he was at Sallie Mae. I've heard a sort of a sock puppet attack, I think, frankly, from people who are pretending to be Fate supporters but are really Fry supporters, that somehow Dwayne Davis sold out, everybody who borrowed money because Sallie Mae was fighting some things that would have been good reforms. The Davis campaign basically says, hey, look at our contributions. Our contributions to Democrats went way up when Dwayne Davis was mayor. But I think, taking a step back from the sock puppet attack, I would just say Dwayne Davis is also a good guy. Like, I tell people, if you want a candidate who sees people without homes as people first instead of the homeless, he's your guy. This is a guy who is work at Plymouth Church. They just did a lot of hands-on work. They have a food shelf for the homeless. I bike past it all the time on my way into teaching at the Y. I mean, he really gets it. This is a good dude. This is a dude that sees whole people. And I don't think he's a DSA type redistributionist. There we go. At the same time, I do think he's a progressive. I do think he, when he talks about sort of, serving the homeless instead of disappearing them, making them hide, he's for real. And his policies will reflect that. And he may have to take some grief from the same people that support Elizabeth Schaefer for, wanting to actually provide services and not use horse cops to chase them off into the river bottoms. I think he's sincere that way. He's having a hard time keeping a campaign. It's run almost completely, if not completely, by volunteers. He may have one paid staff person now. He's got about a 25-person kitchen cabinet. And he's somebody, I think, who's found that it's harder to raise money from that middle progressive group than he expected. But I do think some of the people that are on that volunteer committee, as hard as they're working, are good people, and some of them are political people. So we'll just have to see. Omar Fateh is the one people think may emerge as the top challenger. He's got more money than the other two challengers. He's got a bigger profile. He's got an electoral track record, which they don't have. He's got real accomplishments: Uber drivers, free college. He's got legislative endorsements. He's got DSA support, but he also has DFL support. A lot of the legislatures who support him happen to be on the higher ed committee that he chairs in the Senate, where there's some virtue in being endorsed by his colleagues. But, these aren't wild-eyed lefties. Eric Putnam from St. Cloud is not getting elected with the DSA vote. He's getting elected with the moderate Democratic vote. And I think the Fry campaign feels like they want Fateh to be their opponent. They want to have a Democrat versus DSA battle. And it will remain to be seen whether Fateh can grow the pool of left voters or whether he can also win over some of the more moderate people that, for example, live in my ward, Ward 8, which would be critical to winning any sort of race. Fateh has to deal with the fact that he's got some scandals in his past. He has the election worker who harvested ballots. That one is still sitting with me as an election judge, although I think the explanation I've heard I've chosen to buy.
Was that his brother? Was that his brother-in-law?
I can't remember the relationship.
I think there was a brother-in-law who pled guilty to perjury in that case.
It was perjury, right? Fateh was, I think one of the more convincing things for me is that when it goes to the Senate, the state Senate, it was an ethics hearing. It's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, I believe, and they didn't just drop the charges. They basically did not hold him responsible for that. They did recommend, I think, or order that he undergo some campaign finance training, which had to do with reports. That to me is not a grievous disqualifying type of thing. The other controversy that, Fry's already bringing up, and all of Fry's supporters will bring up, and Fateh's supporters know it, and Fateh better have a good answer for it, and it better be an answer that he has to broadcast, is at the end of the last legislative session where the Democrats had the trifecta, Fateh held tough for Uber drivers. And Governor Walz was, I don't think, on the side of the Uber drivers. I think in some ways Fateh was negotiating against the company and Jacob Fry and Tim Walz. The deal that got cut at the legislature did improve things for the drivers, not as much as they want. And it held up the session, frankly, because if you believe the Fry forces, Fateh didn't care about all the bonding bills and other stuff that could have gotten passed. If you're listening to me, I will tell you that I think it was a failure of the centrist Democrats to understand how serious Fateh was going to hang tough. There's a 1-vote Senate majority, so everybody has a veto. I think they should have gotten serious much more quickly. I also think there was some failures on the part of Senate Democratic leadership, which was kind of first-timey over there in 2024, to run an effective end-of-session operation.
Yeah.
Now,
Bobby Joe Champion got distracted for 30 seconds with a Republican heckler when he could have just ran it through. I was watching it live, and if you just pushed through that and not gotten distracted, you could have done it. It was a mere seconds that cost him that.
Yep. Now, when we get back to the money question, the reason to me money is important. You can win in this city with volunteer work. I think there's a lot of council members who owe their seats not to raising the most money, but to having the best organization and the most door knockers. If Soren Stevenson wins, he came within 38 votes of winning my ward, it won't be because he outraised anybody, although he might this year. It's because his volunteers worked his ass off. The problem is you need enough money to broadcast your message. Fry forces, we know how they campaign. It's negatively. We know that they'll be broadcasting the whole Fateh corrupt thing. They haven't even begun that messaging yet because it's so far away from the election. They've done it in small ways in social media, but it will absolutely be coming, and it will be coming with over $1 million. And so the question will be, in an environment where you can't really trust TV to get into that kind of nuance, and you certainly can't trust the Star Tribune to cover that fairly, how do you talk to people who will be tuning in the middle of October that this is not an issue, and then in fact what he believes in, or what any of the challengers believe in, is a compelling vision for Minneapolis. Now, I hope they all have clever ways. They haven't shared it with me yet, so they may have them. But that to me is the money challenge. In an unfriendly or at least unsophisticated media environment, that's a bigger challenge.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Hello, I'm John Edwards of the Wedge Live podcast. And you know what I don't do enough of is promote the Patreon, patreon.com/Wedge Live. We're here on a sailboat recording this, and that's not cheap. This costs money to do that, money and time and effort, and it doesn't happen without you. So patreon.com/Wedge Live.
Disclaimer, this is not intended as a campaign finance violation. This is a pledge drive, like how the Wedge Live podcast was founded with Jason Garcia's Wedge Live Pledge-a-thon.
This is like public television. Thank you for your support. And thank you, Taylor. And thank you for listening. Let's talk about electability, because the case that Omar Fateh supporters are making to me is like, well, this is the choice. Like, it is Fry or Fateh. And I imagine, like, as you said, the Fry campaign wants that to be the choice too. Like, say 2-person race. Don't think about those other people. It's Fateh or Fry. And but there's a case for Dwayne Davis or Jazz Hampton potentially, although he's a real long shot. Like these people are electable. Like the Omar Fateh, the DSA candidate, is just, he can't win. He can get a strong minority. He's got the most passion. He's gonna have the easiest time raising money, but he's never gonna get to a majority to win an election.
Yeah, and probably, I guess I would probably bet on that, but at the same time, I wouldn't bet my mortgage. And here's why. Ilhan Omar. Now, she has more money than her challenger. She has a longer track record. But there are plenty of maps that you and I have both seen that we could show viewers where the progressive wins. Mary Moriarty, Ilhan Omar, citywide. That can happen. There are really a lot of swing wards that determine the outcome. Betsy Hodges won from a more progressive side in 2017 by expanding the map. When I talk about the map, I guess for people who aren't as wonky, I don't know if any of them are listening to this, but it's commonly referred to, certainly by me, as the Fertile Crescent, which is basically a bunch of wards that sort of sweep west through downtown, go along Lake of the Isles, Bede-Makaska, Lake Harriet, and then kind of sweep around the crosstown wards, Ward 13 and a little bit of Ward 11. Basically, those wards turn out the most, and they can win you an election, but you need help. You need to keep progressive margins down in the rest of the city, Northeast Minneapolis, Ward 8 in the central parts, certainly Ward 9 over by Lake and Minnehaha, the northern part of Ward 12, which is just to the east of that. So that's how Jacob Fry wins. That's how he's won twice, and how he would probably win a third time. But, Ward 1 votes more and more. That's where Elliott Payne is in Northeast Minneapolis. It's a progressive ward. Is it progressive enough to go for Jacob Fry, for Omar Fateh over Jacob Fry? I think it is. How much? That'll be the key question. How does Ward 12 go? They may not, the all of Minneapolis / Jacob Fry political committees may not think they'll win with a super flawed candidate in Becca Thompson in Ward 12. But if they get their voters out there and keep a margin down, that is the Ward 12 in the far southeast corner of the city is now one of the two sort of biggest number voting wards in the city, along with Ward 13 in the southwest corner, Linnea Palmisano's ward, which has always kind of been the major stronghold of votes for candidates like Fry. Well, now there's this counterweight over in Ward 12. So, those will be numbers on election night that I'll be looking at. How are they doing? Ward 8, my ward, which is, around the Kmart site and south. That's also, it's a higher turnout ward. It's not the highest turnout ward, but it's what I call an Elizabeth Warren ward, if you remember that presidential race. And my neighborhood, Kingfield, is kind of split into two halves. There's a northern half that goes between 36th Street and 40th around Nicollet Avenue. And then there's 40th to 46th. Well, my half is the DSA half. And so you tend to run up the score. If you're a Soren Stevenson, you're going to run up the score north of 40th. South of 40th could be, if it's Fry on election night, probably going to be a long night for all of the rest of the challengers. My ward is a place where a candidate like Dwayne Davis is ideologically probably the best, assuming the ward hasn't changed more than I think. But if Dwayne isn't in the final two, what did everybody do with the rest of their ranking? Did they do Jacob Fry ahead of Thate? If they did, it's over.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else on the mayor's race I haven't asked about that you think is important?
Sure there is, but I don't know if there's much more than I know. Like I said, we're just tuning in, and I guess one message I would have, since part of what's nice about talking to you is it does get to people who are involved, is to say that it's never too early to talk to people in your circle who are interested in politics but are not junkies. Like it is the only way this race is going to be won and Jacob Fry is going to lose is if people who are committed to progressive causes talk to their more casual friends. And, it's probably going to be time to do that. And, and you've got to have a good rap. People are going to say, you're going to run into people in your circle, I have, where they say, what's so bad about Jacob Fry? Like, my life's okay in Minneapolis. I was just listening to John Edwards telling me, crime is down and the bike lanes are great. And, I can go out to my restaurants, and Boucheron won a James Beard Award, and, everything's fine. So why would I want to take a chance on somebody else? You got to have a good answer for that. And I would really encourage you to think it through, because when you get out to this level, it's not blue sky where we can generally all agree and we kind of know how Jacob plays the game, but you really got to make it connect with people's lives. This is what Zoran Mamdani has done. And that's genuinely exciting. But the way he's done it is what's key. And that is finding out what's important in people's lives and being able to say why whatever candidate you're supporting is better.
This is so weird because we have a bunch of city council candidates running who are aligned with Fry, but like running to his right. Like my big issue on transportation, like just a bunch of transportation NIMBYs, whereas Jacob Fry has kind of let the public works department continue in the direction it's been going. Like to have a basically anti-bike, anti-transit candidate running in Ward 10 who is like way off to the right of Fry, and like to see this in other places too. It's just, it's weird.
Well, there is a huge cognitive dissonance, frankly, among Fry supporters, especially when it gets to the council level, about sort of what he's responsible for. I know you and I have both banged our heads against the wall when it comes to policing and, alternatives to policing, for example, where, the guy's basically, he's responsible for public safety. And there's a few issues where I think he could legitimately campaign on saying, I wanted something different than the council and I was right. But for the most part, he's in charge. But again, what the media environment has done, what the money on his side has done, what some of the organizing has done, and frankly, what some of the organic radicalization engines like Nextdoor and Citizen do, is reinforce this cognitive dissonance. And I'm not saying the left is immune from it, but to me, I just don't see them being as off kilter with who's really responsible for stuff. So I'm hoping, for example, and we might as well talk about the council now. I'm hoping that in Ward 10, first of all, I'm hoping that it's just such a progressive ward that Aisha gets through. But I'm also hoping that if it isn't organizing and it isn't just basically who votes, that it can also be an issue-oriented campaign. I mean, my understanding of Lydia Millard is that she's basically Michael Rainville, when it comes to public safety. I mean, the cops can do no wrong. We need more cops.
Yeah, her favorite council member is Latricia Vitaw. That's what she said to me.
And, and Latricia runs up big numbers in her ward. So it's not a bad patron to have, or matron, I guess. On the other hand, Ward 10 is not Ward 4. Ward 10 is more progressive. The question, again, is whether what's happened over the last 4 years in Ward 10 is something that Aisha can, attach to people's lives. If people in Ward 10 are feeling like crime is up and whatever, businesses are screaming bloody murder about a bike lane that hasn't even been built, if that's something that people in Ward 10 are bent out of shape about, she'll lose. But I am really hoping what I see in Ward 10 and in other wards, as you notice, is a real good lefty persuasion lit communication TikTok attack on where some of these people actually stand on issues. Because as you know, they are out of the mainstream. When I despair about bike lanes, when I just get pissed at people who get mad about me wanting to just stay fucking alive because I bike in the city and I don't contribute to climate change, I despair. And then when I feel better, I remember that most people in my circle, even the people who might like Jacob Fry, they might have their issues with traffic every once in a while. People in the city basically support bike lanes. I don't want to claim it's 100%, 70%. So I think sometimes it's important to remember to just campaign on what you believe because it's actually popular. And, and I hope the candidates do that.
We have a candidate quality problem. I'm not going to pretend that I agree. Like, I feel like I'm in the middle politically now. Like, we've got a lot of council members to my left, got some council members to my right. But like the quality of the candidates running who are aligned with Fry, who are being supported by his PACs and business interests, like Josh Basset in Ward 8, very out of the mainstream, just like of his ward, just like Lydia Millard is. Becca Thompson in Ward 12. What? I would feel so ashamed if I was running a PAC to put her name on my website. It's just like they're struggling to find good people. And I guess the fear is that some of in the right kind of year, enough of them could win. And that's not good.
There's a phrase as an old sports writer, there's a phrase I always like to use in this context called a puncher's chance. Which basically means if you're not as good a technical boxer, if you can't win a long fight, you can always end it with a knockout. So to me, Becca Thompson is a classic example of a puncher's chance kind of candidate. She's not good. And Oreen does better at blocking and tackling, which means community meetings and involvement, participation, clear explanation, factual stuff. And, all of Minneapolis has decided maybe they couldn't persuade anybody better to get in, that having Becca Thompson come in and basically saying homeless are going to break into your house, steal your stuff and your precious bodily fluids, and crime is everywhere and you're going to be murdered, that's their puncher's chance in that race. I look at that ward and I say, first of all, it's a progressive ward. Second of all, they seem to be running the same sort of campaign, only worse. I mean, whatever you think of Nancy Ford, who ran in 2021 as sort of the all of Minneapolis Fry candidate, she repairs zippers. She's a great zipper repair person. Her store is outstanding, and I've enjoyed working with her there. Like, she's really a part of the community. Whereas Becca is almost one of these. I mean, I know she was born there, but she's one of these many people who are parachuting in and having this crime thing take up all the oxygen. Now, again, haven't seen any polls. Don't know where people, last time I took the temperature of Ward 12 was 2023. Maybe everything's changed. Maybe the crime at the 46th Street light rail station is bad enough. Don't know. But, to your point about poor candidate quality, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes people don't focus on who's going to do the best job. They focus on who's going to represent the tribe that they're in better. And that, by the way, happens on the left too, although I think for the most part our candidates are better. So, yeah, I mean, will Elizabeth Schaefer be a good council member in Ward 7? Will she be better than Katie Cashman? No, she won't. She's not going to be as participatory. She's not going to, frankly, represent renters as well as Katie does, while Katie can also talk to homeowners. And Katie's tried to be a bridge between business and the DSA types, just as Emily Koski did. But you have a whole lot of homeowners there, rich homeowners, who used to be in charge of everything in Minneapolis, everything. And suddenly, Lisa Goodman retired, they lost the seat, and they are super fired up and motivated. They write the checks. Enough of them showed up at the convention, which is something. Does it mean that Elizabeth Schaefer will be a better council member? No, she'll be a reliable vote for Jacob Fry, and she'll be a reliable, as I like to say about the park board, she'll be an HOA candidate, a homeowners association candidate. She'll protect the homeowners at all costs against any sort of larger interest. If that's who shows up in Ward 7, you lose, despite who the best small d democracy candidate will be.
Yeah. You got any park board candidates you like?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to mess around in that one. So the park board, flies way under the radar. If you look at campaign finance reports, I think we've got Paula Chesney, the former city council candidate in Ward 7, also on the All of Minneapolis side. I noticed she raised $5,400, and that's huge money in a park board race, at least as of March in the years. But it's going to be very difficult to win a progressive majority of the park board. It's basically 5-2 right now against progressives on the park board, and one of the two, Becky Alper, isn't running again. I'm supporting Dan Engelhardt, both feet in Park District 1, which is basically all of Northeast Minneapolis. He's running against a guy named Billy Menz. They're both labor guys, but Billy Menz is a park board HOA candidate. He was one of the guys who flipped and turned down free money on the Uptown Mall to build a long planned and sort of small d democratically arranged playground that was going to be on that city, because the homeowners nearby don't want anybody parking in front of their house. And so they couldn't possibly take parking, even though overnight parking is banned on that stretch of Park Board Road. And I know you've talked about this issue on your podcast. Dan was outraged by that. I think he was also outraged by Billy's passivity during the first ever Park Board strike. He's a good guy, good progressive, good lefty. And I think he's got a good chance at being endorsed at the DFL convention, which, reminder for you attendees of the convention, don't leave after the mayor's race, because those park district races, a lot of them are competitive this year. And, there will be big money coming Billy Menz's way, because when you stop a park in a rich neighborhood, rich people give you money. But Dan does have people power. I think he has some of the really best lefties in town endorsing him, including Elliot Payne. He's somebody I would give money to, and it doesn't take much in the park board. If you're looking for somebody to give money to, that is a potential swing seat. District 2 in North Minneapolis looks a little hopeless right now. Charles Rucker, who's an at-large appointee who filled a vacant seat of somebody who resigned, is kind of the only candidate that I know of right now. Maybe that'll change before filing day. Tough ward for progressives to win. District 3, which is where Becky Alper is, which is sort of Longfellow, Seward, east of 35W, very ably represented by Becky Alper, fighting the good fight with only one other colleague, Tom Olson, who's an at-large guy. Kedar Deshpande is running there. He's a great guy, and I think he'll be a really good parks commissioner. I don't know that he will be as progressive. In fact, I'm pretty sure he won't be as progressive as Becky, but I feel like he's an honest broker, and he's a listener, and he's sincerely committed to alternative forms of transit. I think if I had a majority on the park board, I would feel really great about having him. Instead, I just feel good, but I think he's a likely winner. There's nobody else that I know of that's really running there. District 4, we'll see. There's a lot of candidates. The guy who was going to win, a progressive who was going to win, Jordan Leck, had to step down, decided not to run. So now your friend Paula Chesley is running there.
Don't you dare, David Brauer.
She's a friend, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to say it on the podcast, though.
Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. You'll blur the lips when that comes up.
It feels like everyone running is a friend of mine. We did these episodes where Conrad Zbikowski was the cameraman for our beach episodes, and Paula Chesley was the co-host, and now they're both running for park board. And unfortunately, I can't support either of them because I'm supporting Jason Garcia. But
yeah, so that's a race that's tough. It's ranked choice voting, but it works a little differently in park board races where your first choice can count, the full vote can count for your choice if they need it. But if that choice has more than enough to get elected, the remainder will drop down and we elect three at-large people. But anyway, in the districts, it's just one person. So Jason is clearly the progressive choice, Jason Garcia, friend of the podcast, and whether he can overcome Paula Chesley and her money and the Elizabeth Schaefer and the Jacob Fries and the Olive Minneapolises, we'll see. Really good guy. I just don't know how that's going to go. I don't know. I think ranked choice may come into maybe a factor there because multiple people are running, and I can't even name the other candidate besides Paula Conrad and
Gibo, Andrew Gibo.
Who I don't really know anything about. Good guy.
He's nice. I like him. I will be ranking Jason number 1.
I hope a progressive wins there. A progressive can win there. Also kind of tough. Again, we may, if a Fate gets through, maybe we win that seat. District 5 is Stephanie Musich. She hasn't been on the progressive majority. She's almost certainly going to win. District 6 is interesting because Kathy Abeni, who's the incumbent, is a Fry / all of Minneapolis / Linnea Palmisano person. She's a water engineer. Been good on a few things, but overall not a progressive. Running against Ira Jourdain, who was a former school board member and was recruited by labor to run because Kathy Abeni was not helpful to them in their strike. I'd say Abeni's the favorite. I'm going to vote for Jourdain. I encourage progressives to do the same. There's a chance there. In the at-large side, Meg Forney is running again. She is almost certain to win, but I guess we don't know. Tom Olson is the guy I would really strongly encourage people to vote for. Good progressive who has labored in the fields, good canoeist from what I understand, based on the podcast, but a really true, good, hardworking progressive. And park board people don't get paid dirt. So, I think that's a thank you to him. But there are other, you get 3. And I would also talk up Michael Wilson and Andrew Schneider, I believe it is. I haven't talked to Adam Schneider, who's not running as a DFLer. But keep your eyes on if you've got only a certain amount of time, aside from your district, do pay attention to the at-large race, because I think that's one that has multiple at-large people who will be good. And I think even as we speak, the Fry forces are working to recruit more people to counteract that. So it's definitely worth paying attention to, and I'm sure you and me on Blue Sky and elsewhere will be talking about those races more as we get closer.
Everybody check out the Michael Wilson sailboat episode, which is on YouTube now. That was a lot of fun. And David Brauer, thank you for spending nearly an hour of your day with me to talk about the mayor's race and all these park board candidates and city council candidates.
You're welcome. To be continued. I still have a bunch to learn as well. So thank you for all you do. I just think this sort of basic citizen level information is so key, especially in a media environment that's just degraded a whole lot since I started in the game. And I don't want to take you for granted. So I do want to say thank you. And of course, thanks to everybody who's bothering to listen this far.
Yeah, and nobody take David Brauer for granted either. Municipal treasure, David Brauer. Thank you. I am your host, John Edwards. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. Thank you for listening.
All I know,
going on today?
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now, 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 right now.